Hello. Here I'm going to try to explain why I like my ellipsoid-surfaced sharpening stones. These are only really relevant for sharpening razors because obviously with kitchen knives and other knives, a flat stone to make a flat bevel to a nice keen edge, it works very well. But with a razor, we're looking at the ultimate edge. The difference being that most knives that cut vegetables and meat and other things don't get complaints, but when you shave with a dull razor, that is an unpleasant experience, and none of us wants to endure that. So I've got two razors here. One razor here shows that it has a flat spine and a flat edge. So with this razor, it makes perfect sense to use a flat stone. So here, for example, I have a nice big Arkansas stone, and if I put this razor on the edge, the spine will touch and the edge will touch, and with a very slight pressure from one side to the other, you can get the whole edge pretty much sharp. It works. It's not as good as the original edge, which was probably made on a wheel and would be slightly, it would make a hollow ground bevel. I'm not talking about the main face of the blade, I'm talking about the bevel right behind the edge. It's not really evident if you just look at it in normal distances, but on a micro level, a hollow grind makes a slightly thinner edge. So even in this situation, the edge was probably hollow ground, but as a practical matter, because of the length of this face, it probably still makes a very keen edge. Fact of the matter is that this is a modern stainless steel, and it works extremely well and shaves beautifully. This is made by Hana. But most of my razors are not as easy as that. They have what's known as the Sheffield smile. So here's a typical Sheffield razor, and you can see that the spine is curved and the edge has a slight smile. It's slightly thicker at this end, at the toe, and gets slightly thinner at the heel. Now, earlier razors than this were even more exaggerated. The tang led straight into the toe, and the toe was often much narrower, and the edge was sometimes a lot wider than this. So the blade was more triangular. So the question then comes, how do you sharpen it? And if you put it on a flat stone, this is the spine would touch in two places. But as it turns out, with a spine that's so curved, it's sort of difficult to make it touch in a firm position. But then, when the edge touches, well, it really only touches in the middle here. So then you can lean the thing to one side and lean it to the other, and the spine can become a guide. But if you're an experienced sharpener, you can probably handle that. But most sharpeners, or at least most beginners, stick the blade on the thing like this, push it down hard, and then grind away. Scrub it back and forth. And what they do is ruin the edge, because most of the forum advisors say use a flat stone and get rid of that factory edge, because that thing just is not appropriate. So most razors are ruined before they're even used for the first time. So even the brand new factory razor, which is probably very good, is never experienced. And even the factory says, before use, strop it. Well, all the strop does is round over the edge. So even the very first shave ain't that great, at least not by comparison with my shaves. So what I worked out eventually, it took me a long time to understand this and work it out, because I kept getting the wrong advice, and I tried to follow the advisors, I kept going down the wrong paths, kept getting the wrong result, getting uncomfortable shaves, and trying to strop it better, and it didn't get better. Trying to sharpen it with these big flat stones, and all I ended up doing was ruining a bunch of razors, because I'd grind out the middle here, so then the thing had a big frown because it was completely ruined, and a nice flat spine because I had to grind for so long to get this central part ground away until the edges touched. Well, it's a bad idea. What I've learned over time is that the blade is made up of a section. To imagine how it works, it's made up of a whole collection of little fine pieces of blade. So what happens then is that I started to use, instead of wide flat stones, I then started to grind a convex surface onto my stones. So this, for example, is about a 1.5 inch wide stone. This is an Arkansas stone, and I ground a surface onto this which is cylindrical this way, and then I ground it this way slightly, so that really when I sharpen with this, typically I'd hold the stone and keep the razor steady, and then put this on the spine, and because the spine is slightly curved and this is slightly curved, I could always get one point to touch on the spine, and then I could get one point to touch on the edge. And so then I could push it like this, and I could get a slightly concave bevel, which gave me a longer, it made it thinner behind the edge, and therefore the edge became more flexible, and it was very sharp. And I got beautiful shaves, finally, after all these years. And then I moved from this slightly wider stone to narrower stones. And I eventually came down to, I tried some 4-inch stones. This is a small, probably a 3.5 inch stone. And I put a stronger curve on it. And that ended up being too much. So by the time I put this on it, this is almost the curve of the face here. So for a wedge type razor like this, this didn't work out well, because the face of this would touch the face of the blade. But this was an experiment, and I learned from it. So this then became obsolete and no use really. So then I finally came down to making narrower stones. For example, like this. This is a 1-inch wide piece of Arkansas stone, and it's nice and long, so I could hold it with my hand. And because it's flat, I could then put it on the spine and on the edge, and then I'm only touching a 1-inch wide section. So that was better than trying to use a 2-inch wide stone. But it still touches 2 points on the spine, but doesn't really follow the curve. And then it's limited to how many points it can touch along the edge. So this is great for knives, for sharpening knives, for anything with a regular flat bevel, anything for most practical uses like chisels and knives and scissors and all those sort of things. It works beautifully because the angle doesn't have to be as acute as a razor. So this became useful for other tools, and then I got down to grinding these stones, which are once again novaculite, but you can see, maybe you can see here, there's a curve this way and there's a curve that way. These are two separate stones. One is a slightly coarser than the other, but these worked well, and but eventually they were difficult to keep to make, and I came across 3M diamond film, and that turns out that it worked out better, because at the time I was often visiting my friend down in the wood shop, and he was nice enough to let me play with all of his machines and cut out whatever I wanted. So these got sidelined, and I got down to these. I cut maple blocks, just 6 inches by 1 inch wide, and however thick these are, 3/4 of an inch or so. And then I ground the surface of these maple blocks down so that there's a 6-foot radius curve on here, this way. And then on the other side, on the shorter side, it looks almost flat here, but it's not. There's a 25-foot radius curve on it. So it's a very slight curve, but it turns out it makes all the difference. So in the end, what I do now is I simply use these two stones. This is 3M diamond film. It's the orange, which I've forgotten what it is, but maybe it's roughly equivalent to 1,000 grit. And this is the pink 3M diamond lapping film, and I believe this is, if I'm not mistaken, 3 microns. So it's, I don't know, I suppose equivalent to roughly 5,000 grit. But this is good enough to finish my razors to get a great edge. So typically what I would do is, if I have a razor that has a flat edge, a flat bevel on it, I would use this stone, put a drop of oil on it. This is Dan's oil, or sometimes I've tried where is it? Well, I don't see it. Anyway, there's stroppy stuff, is a glycerin-based one, and then sometimes if I want a nice smell, I just use lavender essential oil. That works nicely. And what I then do is I grind, I put this on the surface, and because of the curve in both directions, it fits nicely onto the spine, and then it touches the bevel nicely too. So when I start grinding it, mostly to begin with, I just scrub it. I get the razor steady like this. Let me move this out of the way here. Get my hand steady and get the stone, and then I literally just rub it like this. I scrub it, because initially it's only touching at the top of the bevel. It touches the spine and the top of the bevel. It doesn't touch the edge. But pretty quickly it grinds away the bevel and makes it slightly hollow, and I grind it until, of course, the grind reaches the edge. And once that's done, then I move on to the finer stone. So I move on to the 3 micron stone, this pink, and again put a drop of lubricant on it. It can be used dry, but it seems to work better with a bit of lubricant. And then I put it on here, and once again I will probably scrub it a little bit just to get rid of some of the initial scratch marks, but otherwise I get this on it and then literally just drag it off again and again and again. There it goes, all the way to the end. And if I look at it with my magnifying glass, sometimes I have this magnifying glass, and I can turn on the little light. So it's got a little LED light in here, and by literally turning it, looking edge on at the blade, I can look through it, and I can look all the way along the blade. And if there's a little there's sometimes, for example, a little patch which will be shiny, and typically at the end here there'll be a little shiny spot, and I say, oh well, that's just a flat on top of the edge. So I can get this, and instead of trying to grind the whole blade, I just come in here and I can lean the little block into the area that needs more help, and literally just grind it out. Typically, if it's got a flat spot, I'll go back to the coarser stone and grind it until it's out, and then polish it out with this, and just carefully do this. So straight like that, pull it through again, pull it through. Doesn't take much, maybe 10 strokes. You can see even this on a dry surface here, you can see it's already scratched some steel off here. Anyway, then turn it over, and again just ride it out like that. not too many. Doesn't take much. It takes quite a long time, especially with hard steels. This old Sheffield steel is soft. I mean, maybe between 55 and 60 Rockwell. But modern razors are 62, 63, and they're hard. They take a long time to grind. So I can spend maybe half an hour with the coarser stone getting the shape of the bevel right. But once it's right, then all I need is this. And just come back to it and just polish that out. And even after using it for a while, I just come back, give it a few stripes with this, and it straightens out the edge and cleans it up, and works absolutely beautifully. And again, maybe take one on the other side. And so you can see there it is. Well, you can see even with those few light strokes, you can see there's quite a bit of swarf on here. And it doesn't wipe off when it's dry. If there were oil, I just get a piece of paper. Toilet paper works really well. Bunch it up. Just wipe that off. Well, here let's do that just to illustrate what I mean. So I can literally rub that around a little bit, and there it's released all the swarf, and it'll be in the paper. So that's it. Now to finish, what else would I do? I wouldn't strop it, because the strop will ruin that little edge. It'll round it over. But what I might do is, if I suspect there's a tiny bit of burr, and usually there isn't. I mean, if there is, it's so small it doesn't matter. But what I will do is just use this. This is a piece of cordovan leather. It's very tough, dense leather. And I've got, I think, some 1/4 micron slurry, whatever you call it, the stuff, the solutions with the grit in it, and it's soaked into the leather. So I'm not sure that it makes much difference. Plain leather will probably do just as well, but this does the job. And all I do is I lightly wipe it along the edge like that. Maybe once or twice, just like that. A little bit of pressure from my finger, and then again, just wipe it off the edge. Wipe it off the edge. There we are. And that's the most I'll do. And you can see that this has a little shiny spot from where I've done it to razors. And this, I guarantee, is going to give me a razor that doesn't only make the razor smile, it's going to make me smile. It says for strong beards. Haha, yes, it cuts through strong beards beautifully. This is almost a wedge razor, and so typically they have a fairly obtuse angle on the edge, but after I've done it with the with my convex surfaced, my ellipsoid surfaced stones, this bevel is thin and beautiful, and it works like a champ. So there we are. I hope that explains what I do with them. Oh, there's one more thing I could tell you about. If I wanted to, I could have some of this. This is, I think, 0.1 micron 3M diamond film. And I've stuck it to a piece of glass so that it's flat. So one thing that I could do is, if I wanted to, I could get this fine stone, put it on the spine, and that would give me an even sharper edge. Right on the edge, it would just, if the bevel comes up like this, you know, with the hollow grind in here, the flat would just come across these 2 points. It wouldn't touch the bevel. It would just touch the edges. And I might just give it a very light wipe with that. I mean, not much. Literally just a wipe like that, and a wipe on the other side. This being diamond lapping film, it's very hard, so it cuts even though it's such a light touch. But so that's it. This is a Norton Ascent stone, It's a ceramic stone. It's extremely hard, and it's very fine. It's much finer than an Arkansas stone. But this too could be used to just smooth out an edge. But for the most part, I just finish with the pink stone. It's a 3-micron finish, and it shaves like a champ. All right, I think that's enough to explain what I'm trying to do. Goodbye.